So certain sections, as a result of having all this access to technology at a young age, certain sections of their brains have developed faster and other sections have developed slower. And so we see, high content. In fact, this generation creates and consumes more content than any other generation. They're high visual learners. They struggle to learn unless it's by doing or by watching, through videos and photos. So when you think about things like how we inform, how we educate, how we train, whether that's in associations or in our member companies or our workforces, we have to rethink all of that now.
Hi, welcome to the Member Lounge podcast. In this podcast, you'll learn how to grow your association membership. I'm your host Farhad Khan. I'm the CEO of Member Lounge. We build membership websites for professional associations. Our app Member Lounge is one of the quickest ways for you to build an engaging membership community for your membership. With Member Lounge, you can take your member marketing on autopilot so that member engagement just happens without you having to work hard for it. You can see a demo of Member Lounge on our website at memberlounge.app. That is memberlounge, all one word, .app. This is a live recording of our podcast episode. If you're joining us live today, welcome. We got some amazing questions from the audience already, but if you have any more questions during the episode, please submit them on Zoom questions. We're also streaming this live on YouTube. So if you're joining us on YouTube, you can submit questions by using the YouTube live chat. And if you're joining on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up so we can create more content for you like this. Today, we're excited to have Sarah Sladek with us. Sarah is the keynote speaker and a thought leader in generational changes in the workplace. She has written 6 books, including her latest book, Member Shift, and she has helped many organizations bridge the gap between generations. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you start by telling us a bit about yourself and your work?
Sure. So it's an honor to be here with you today. Thank you so very much. And it's so fun to see people tuning in from all over North America and even beyond. So welcome. Amazing. So yes, I am Sarah Sladek, and I started studying engagement trends in the workforce and membership associations about 20 years ago. So I like to say I started really young, because to say that I've been doing this for 2 decades, it sounds like a really long time. But it's been a fascinating experience just to look at how trends have changed in the past couple of decades, why they changed, why belonging has kind of been redefined, how different generations engage with organizations differently. And I am the CEO and founder of XYZ University, which, again, we do membership research and strategies, as well as training and consulting for workforces as well.
Wonderful. So, Sarah, can you paint the picture how are associations affected by generational change right now? What are the challenges we're talking about?
Okay, so that's a loaded question. I could talk for hours about that, but clearly, we have seen. I like to say, because this is what the trends indicate, that ever since the dot-com bubble burst, we have seen real change in terms of what people want from their associations. And for the generations that have been born since technology first arrived on the scene in the 1980s and started coming of age in the 1990s, we started to see that there's increased pressure on associations to provide access to more products, more information faster than ever before. And again, that's part of that change in engagement. So in essence, we have generations who have now come to the table expecting very different deliverables and experiences from their membership associations. And the challenge that has emerged is that some associations have really struggled to modernize and evolve. And as a result, they're seeing declining membership. Or you hear all the time, we can't engage young people. And it's become a reoccurring theme. It was really notable about 10 years ago. And now that we're in the aftermath of pandemic, it feels again like there is an incredible sense of urgency to be able to reach the next generation.
So, Sarah, what is the key difference in the expectation that you think for younger members?
Well, there are many, but again, in the interest of our time today, I will boil it down to one key thing. We've seen the cycle to engagement actually change. This is what my research has revealed. And I'm going to try to explain this very briefly. So previously, prior generations, baby boomers, Generation X, those again born 1981 or earlier, they were raised to join an association because it was the right thing to do. It used to be that joining an association was kind of a social obligation, or your boss would tell you you need to join this organization. They would often pay for the dues. It was just built into the fabric of society. And a big reason why it was built into the fabric of society is because these generations came of age after World War II. And after World War II, everyone was saying we got to rebuild our communities, reinvest in our companies and our countries. And so associations were at the helm and membership really, boomed. But as we see now, the cycle to engagement has changed. So it used to be for boomers and Xers. You join an association and then you sit back and you observe, because it used to be young people didn't really have a voice or any power. So you'd sit back, you'd observe, you'd kind of be a wallflower, like sit back, pay your dues, wait your turn, work your way up the ladder. We have all these sayings that just watch and learn. And then eventually, after you'd been a member for a while, you would have the opportunity to volunteer for a committee, eventually enough expertise and experience to be on the board of directors. And that was a really big deal. It was kind of a hierarchical pinnacle. And then people really felt like, hey, this is my association. I belong. But for the younger generations, that's not the case at all. That cycle to engagement has shifted. Now we hear in our research efforts that young people say, well, I haven't joined because no one invited me. That's number one. It's not an obligation anymore. It's more of a peer-to-peer, be part of a community. Once they are invited and they do attend something for the first time with the association, they want to immediately feel like they belong. And they want to immediately feel that emotional connection, like this association gets me and my unique interests and my unique needs, and they are making room for me. And then they immediately want the opportunity to participate in something, to learn, lead, or make a difference. They're not sitting around and waiting. They want to right away roll up their sleeves. And what we hear a lot in the research with young people is they will say, hey, if I'm making the decision to join, I'm making a personal statement and a personal commitment about what I believe in, and I'm aligning myself with that brand. And so it's got to deliver results. They're really taking this as a personal statement. And then they are thanked for having that opportunity to immediately get involved and do something and participate in the organization. And then that cycle just keeps continuing. Then they invite new people and so on and so forth. So the cycles of engagement, member engagement, have actually changed radically. And we're not really talking about that very much at all.
Right. So we keep hearing that younger members, like, they don't want to engage, or they are not like joining, they're not joiners, right? But what you're saying is like that is not the fact, like they actually want to engage faster at a different level, much quicker.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an innate human need to want to belong to something. We didn't just all of a sudden wake up as a society and all of a sudden there's this odd character flaw that emerged, and young people all of a sudden said, we don't want to join. This isn't for us. No, that's not the case at all. And I find it interesting, but again, this it's kind of been this way since caveman days, quite frankly. The
Yeah.
elders of any given society had all the wisdom and all the experience, and everyone would gather around and learn from those elders. And again, that concept of working your way up the ladder. But now we realize that everyone has something to learn, something to teach. Now we realize that young people have real value, unique perspectives, skill sets to bring to the table. But instead of kind of self-reflecting on the organization, there's this tendency still to kind of dismantle the youngest generation and try to minimize their impact. And to again go back to that gut reaction of wait your turn, you're young, you know nothing. And when we look at this in terms of member engagement, rather than associations saying, gosh, what's going on? Are we still relevant? Do
Mm.
we need to change? Do we need to modernize? Instead, there's a lot of, there's something wrong with you guys. There's a flaw here, and it's all of you. And that conversation's got to flip.
Right, right. So, Sarah, when we talk about member engagement, like for any association, we look at it as like a three-part activity, you know. So we start by looking at creating value. Then we look at how do we deliver that value to the members, and then finally, how do we promote or market the value. So I divided my questions in these three parts. So if we need to change the way we are creating value for younger members, how would you approach it, or what does your research say overall?
Yeah. So value is really, really big.
Yeah.
Again, value has shifted because what people want, need, and expect has changed. Again, it was enough for an association to just put on a conference, do occasional meetings or events, everything in person, have lunch together, kind of the 3 martini lunch or the rubber chicken dinner or whatever. And again, now so much about society has changed. We're wanting things more on demand, instantly available. We want things online as well as in person. We want education. We need to expand our skill sets constantly. We're in this mode of constant learning and navigation and disruption. So obviously what our members want, that's changed. And what the research says about young professionals is that there are kind of 3 core areas. So they want to learn something. And if you put this into perspective, they're very accustomed to learning things very, very fast, but also our workplaces are in greater need as a result of retirement waves. They need people to fill the skills gaps and to very quickly learn critical skills, including soft skills. Young people today, because of the retirement wave and because there are simply more career choices, they're under
Mm.
tremendous pressure to move into leadership at an earlier age. So they need skills. They need to learn. They're constantly learning. They want to lead something. In other words, they want the opportunity to use their voice and influence and be able to actually have a seat at decision-making tables. This helps them with their learning. It helps them with their leadership capabilities. And it empowers them and helps them to feel that they're a valued part of the community. And they want to make a difference. So we hear this a lot with young people that if I'm joining an association, yes, I want to support that association, but there also needs to be kind of a greater good, a greater call to action that as a result of me joining and being a part of this organization, I am somehow benefiting or helping others. And so it's key that the association has some sort of mission that's very prevalent, some sort of ROI, return on investment that's very prevalent, a call to action. Again, it's not just a transactional kind of sit back type of experience anymore. It's very much an emotional connection, action-oriented experience that young people are asking for and wanting.
So I guess like in terms of engaging so many people, so many younger members. So I think like what I'm hearing is that like association members in the past were not like super engaged. They would probably like come out to events every now and then. But nowadays the expectation from younger audience is to kind of like be more engaged more frequently in more micro interactions, right? So I guess that means like we have to like give our like members like that like opportunity, that outlet to engage in micro interactions. So what are some ways you would approach that?
Yeah, micro interactions. So everything from micro learning courses to short-term leadership opportunities like leading a task force or participating in a hackathon or a very short-term volunteer project. Things like service projects, something you can right away go in and feel like you're making a difference. Again, I think we got used to kind of going and observing associations. It was kind of a show.
Hmm.
And now we're hearing from young people that no, this is a community and I am part of this community. And I want to be represented in this community. I want to see diversity in this community. I want to see this association making a difference. I mean, it's all these things combined. Just that definition of member engagement, it's changing. And I think also member engagement is not necessarily the person that's participating the most. And I get some pushback for this. You know, just because someone's serving on your board does not mean they're engaged. I hate to tell you that, but it's true. Um, Otherwise, we would never hear complaints about the board, where I hear complaints about the board all the time. We have people that never show up for meetings. They never help us out. They complain all the time. It's just like toxic board environments, right? Well, it could be argued that those are the most engaged members. And I would say, no, those people are not truly engaged because engagement is an emotional connection. It means that you feel really proud to be there. You feel a sense of belonging, a sense of ownership. You have a secure relationship, and you are, gosh dang it, you are happy to be there. You want to be there. And as a result, you're sharing, it's contagious. You're sharing with other people why they need to be there. And so that's a very different definition of member engagement as I see it.
So, can we talk about some like examples of like different types of service associations can provide? Like, would it be like mentorship opportunities, or would it be like maybe more communities of practice, or more like advocacy initiatives? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but I just want to preface it by saying don't try to guess. You got to do the research. And it shocks me. It absolutely shocks me how many associations we talk to and they say, gosh, no one's joining, or we're seeing turnover, or people come in, but they leave. And then you say, okay, well, what do your members say about that? Why is that happening? Do you ask them? Well, no. There's like this hesitancy I've learned with a lot of associations. They're afraid to ask, they're afraid to survey. And I think as we go forward, if you want to know your community and engage your community, you've got to be in constant dialogue with your community. So that means polling, surveying, all constant conversations, picking up the phone and talking to them, going on listening tours, whatever it takes, because then you can develop what they want. But if you're just guessing, you're probably going to fail at it. So back to your question, what can associations provide? There are a number of things. Yes, mentoring programs are great. Job shadowing and skills training and field trips and things like that are, because quite frankly, we're seeing associations needing to fill some of the void where education is not doing its job. So it's an opportunity for associations to be thinking creatively about career development, professional skill development, job boards, all those types of things. yes, it may be advocacy, but just be careful though that, it's not something that's readily available to all
Mm.
members. It's got to be trying to do things that are exclusive to members only. Otherwise, you dilute the member value proposition. But ask your members. That's absolutely key.
So I guess like constant dialogue with the members is very important, and like we tell that to our like clients and associations like all the time that you have to have like an ongoing dialogue with your members all the time, as opposed to like launching that one survey end of the year.
Yeah.
Like we
Every
may
10
give you the
years.
wrong answer every 10 years. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like keep a dialogue on. Like every single time there is an
Yeah.
event or something, like keep the dialogue on. Keep talking to them. Understand like what members need. Now I guess like there as well. I guess like there is a that risk of asking the wrong question or biased questions so we get the answer that we want to hear, right? So do you have an approach to asking the right questions to younger members?
Mm, I do. And again, this is part of what our company does. So I'm not going to give away all the secrets, but I would say it's not asking about things like what time of day should we have our event, or it's talking, I think it's talking about what's keeping you up at night. And it's talking about, so you really, really understand the needs and pressing and urgent challenges. And that's why you need to be talking to your audience all the time, because those challenges change. And those challenges vary by age group. So
Mm.
being mindful that you need to look at the macro data, yes, but you also need to look at the micro data. But it's asking, what are you challenged with? Because people join associations, the data shows repeatedly, people join associations believing that association can help them solve a problem. And they will renew when that problem has been solved and they feel a connection to the organization. So it really comes down to problem solving capabilities and relationship building capabilities. That's really the crux. But so ask about what's keeping you up at night. I would also encourage associations to be asking about what do you think would be valuable? What would help you be more successful in your career right now? And I'll just add one other thing, maybe also asking about brand. How do young people perceive your brand as an association? Because that is very telling. If they're describing your association as really outdated, very hierarchical or not inclusive, then there's other elements that your association needs to start working on as well.
Now, since the pandemic and like a lot of our clients are actually healthcare associations, so we are seeing this trend as well that like healthcare workers are increasingly like burnt out, and as a result, like and they don't actually have like a community that is given to them from work or anywhere else where they can talk and communicate and bounce ideas of each other. And the associations are like used to be the place who used to fill the gap, but even the associations are not engaging members well. So hence there's this like gap, and like this is the gap that associations can actually fill. So this is one like area from healthcare associations. And another side that we see is that like a lot of companies have gone completely remote or hybrid. So meaning like that the workplace culture, that like friendly community that used to be there is not there anymore for all the organizations. And associations actually have like this opportunity to fill like that gap here as well. Now, how would these scenarios like apply to younger members, or do they even?
Oh, absolutely, they do. Just speaking of like workforce environments and what we're seeing in terms of in person versus virtual, hybrid, this is something I've talked about for a long time. We're always hearing from young people because they have grown up with technology. They're expecting your association to be on demand 24/7, customizable. Um, and then when associations don't invest in technology and that level of customer service, or they're not readily accessible, or they're all about going back to everything in person, that's just alienating entire audiences, especially young people. Because the unfortunate reality is that young people often aren't given the budget to attend association events. They don't always have the support. It's often frowned upon in their workplaces that they're taking time off to go to an association event. So when you're forcing everything to be in person, you are alienating the younger audience in multiple ways. Um, so yeah, I mean, some of the things that are happening in our workforce environment is definitely reflected in associations. Another thing that pops to mind is the concept of globalization. I think a lot of associations are still kind of thinking about community building in terms of, you know, corrals or little picket fences that, we have districts, we have chapters, we have this, everything is kind of segmented into circles. And that's an old fashioned mentality when you really think about it, because technology has afforded us the opportunity to network with anyone, anytime, anywhere in the world. So if young people find that I can much easier do that via LinkedIn or elsewhere, or build my own online community, what do I need your association for? And I've seen young groups break off from their associations because they're so incredibly frustrated by some of these principles. So I think associations have to be really mindful and asking themselves, are we truly reflecting our entire community of members? And are we really truly reflecting the current needs of the marketplace and the modern workforce environment in all that we do?
And that actually reminds me, like when I grew up, we still had a landline phone long back, right? But then like if like when our kids are growing up nowadays, like they start with a cell phone and then an online community by default. So I
Yeah.
think like like Gen Z, I think like by default, they will actually expect everything to be online and then
Oh,
be like have like an online community like for the association and whatnot overall, right? So if we are not giving it to them, then by default, we are like removing that opportunity that we could easily like have with the members.
yeah. Oh, I want to add to that for a second. Yes, absolutely. So it started with millennial generation. It's just accelerated with Gen Z, right? Because Gen Z is the first generation to grow up with social media, never knowing life without it. They've always had, a line of communication to the president of the United States or, whoever, prime ministers, queens,
Yeah.
kings, whatever. They have a platform. They've been raised with a platform, with a voice readily available at their fingertips. And so yeah, that certainly reflects in what they're going to expect coming to any organization, workforce, association. They're going to walk in and say, oh, wait a second, if you don't care about my voice, my opinion, I'm out of here, right? But the other thing that's fascinating about Gen Z that I want to share, because it just blows my mind, is that there's research to prove that their brains have developed differently, which is
Oh my
fascinating
God.
to me. So, so certain sections, as a result of having all this access to technology at a young age, certain sections of their brains have developed faster, and other sections have developed slower. And so we see, high content. In fact, this generation creates and consumes more content than any other generation. They're high visual learners. They struggle to learn unless it's by doing or by watching, like, through videos and photos. So when you think about things like how we inform, how we educate, how we train, whether that's in associations or in our member companies or our workforces, we have to rethink all of that now. We've got to get away from everything being typed out and presented kind of old school. We got to think in video. We got to think shorter bits. We've got to think high visual. We got to, I mean, man, oh man, we got to change that up and stay ahead of the curve rather than falling behind.
I think that's a very good segue to my next set of questions. But like, my God, what you're saying is that like Gen Z actually their brains developed in a different way. We're going to make this the highlight of this episode.
It's crazy, right? We're seeing
Totally.
evolution happen right now. It's just kind of like, wow.
Right, right. Actually, you know what? Like, so even though like I'm not Gen Z, I'm probably like more on the millennial side. But like what I have seen is that when I interact with any technology, like apps or whatnot, like I can see the app. I see, maybe because I'm a technology person as well. I see how the app works behind the scenes, where the bugs might be and whatnot. What will I press and what will I get? You know, I actually kind of
Yeah.
like I kind of like have like a vision like the Matrix. You know, like I see it and I see few steps
Yeah.
behind the curtain, right?
Yes.
When it
Yes.
comes to apps and technologies and social media. So yeah, that is mind blowing. That is mind blowing what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's going to change a lot. And, Gen Z, the oldest Z's this year are 26. The youngest are 14, I believe. So there's still a lot of Z's yet to come. And we're just going to start realizing and seeing more and more demand for change. And, closely aligned with this too is the fact that pros and cons, right? Their brains are like little supercomputers. They obtain information very, very quickly, create and consume a lot of content, which you got to ask in your association. Are you allowing Gen Zs to come in and create and consume content? Is it geared for them? But also just thinking about that speed, but also just that visual piece of it and how that's going to just change everything, right? It's just wild. These are wild times.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk about that. So my next set of questions is around like the format of the content. So how do you deliver the value, right? So I guess like what you're saying is that like it's more about creating or and maybe like delivering like shorter form content, like more than longer form. So does that mean that like we don't have like room for the long form content anymore, or it's a hybrid? Like what is the best practice?
I get asked this question a lot. Well, wait a second. If we do this is going to alienate them, right? And there's a lot. So I have a couple answers to that. There's a lot of fear of change that, oh, if we go too modern, those boomers won't be able to keep up. And there's a lot of fear of that. I think, again, an association needs to be reflective of their entire community. And it's very, very challenging. Well, first of all, survey your community, find out what they
Hmm.
want, disseminate the information by age group, but really, really seek to understand the breadth of what people want and strive to deliver on it. At least pick a couple of areas where we're going to have the long form content, but we're also going to have short form content. We're going to do both because we know there's audiences that want to dive deep and read all of this, and we know there are audiences that their brains are working differently and they want short form content. um and the other thing is, you are representing a very diverse community. It's no longer one size fits all. And it kind of makes me cringe just a little bit when I hear associations talk about like, we can't do that because that's going to tick off so and so or this group. And if you think about your association like a buffet, because for a long time, association served pizza. It was kind of one size fits all, and not a whole lot of variety. And you did the same thing year after year, and there were traditions and there were, practices and policies and legacies to uphold. And we did it we've always done it this way, right? So it's always pizza, pizza, pizza. And then you start having an audience coming in and going, well, what about spaghetti? And then you go, no spaghetti. It's only pizza. Well, it doesn't take very long. And all of a sudden you've alienated that audience. And I think that in a nutshell is what's happened with associations. They've held so steadfast to those legacies and traditions in pizza making that they've neglected all those who love spaghetti. And now they have a real problem on their hands because they're struggling to engage entire groups of people. So we, as a community of belonging, it's making sure everyone in the community belongs. And that sounds very obvious, but it's surprising how associations are still in that mindset of catering to those with the most experience, the highest level executives, and the few that just kind of dictate what is going to be for the majority.
So Sarah, would a solution be like this? So, for example, like we are producing content or like holding an event which is like on this one problem, for example, right? Say a webinar, right? So we are addressing this particular topic, and then like we are holding a long form webinar, say a 60 to 90-minute webinar on this. But I know that my younger members will not like watch a 90-minute long webinar or a session, right? So then is it a matter of kind of like starting with the long form content so we can address the main problems and then address the main challenges, like have that content in there, but then also make the same content available in like smaller formats, like shorter video chunks, maybe in like small worksheets, guides, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Or taking something long form and repurposing it into some shorter things. I think there's lots of options, or still doing the long form, but again, offsetting that with also short form. There's many opportunities. There's no shortage of solutions. It's just a matter of getting creative, innovative, and making sure you're responding to what your members want you to provide.
Right, right. So I guess like the trick here is that we shouldn't be taking on too much work on ourselves while we're doing that. So I think like the question is that like we should focus on the content that probably like caters to our broad group of audience still, maybe like some older members, some younger members, right? So and then like we have that good intersection of the topic, and then we create the content, and then make sure that the content creation activity happens once. The same thing can be repurposed many times. And like in terms of the online portal, so like we build online membership portals, like for associations. So like I think like we have mastered the like craft of that, but I want your advice in this area. So if an association like were to engage their members online, like through their member portal, what are some like potential ways they could?
I am a firm believer that you need to use an influencer approach to anything, any community building efforts, online or otherwise, in your association. So by that, I mean, whenever you're trying something new and trying to build community, the best way to build community is, I mean, think of it old school, right? If you're going to have this amazing dinner party, or a political campaign, or whatever the case may be, you want to get the right people in the room, the people who naturally have a lot of followers and a lot of positivity,
Hmm.
and they just exude that enthusiasm, and they're fantastic dinner guests at your dinner party, right? So I really feel like associations need to be more mindful about contacting members, influencers in their community, and saying, we need help launching this. Can you actively participate and get this going for us? And in return, we'll do something for you, whether it's, free conference or something of value in return for their time and their help. And also, taking the time to thank them publicly for their help. Hey, we couldn't have started this community without the help of these members, and giving them that positive shout out. But a lot of times, some of these things don't work when it comes to member engagement, which again, this isn't like a business transaction. Sometimes people approach membership like it's a cereal, and it's not. Membership is very much a community building effort. And so you got to think about, how do we get the right voices? How do we build momentum through people? And not just the association kind of being the business voice and doing it single-handedly, but actually leveraging your community. That's so much more influential and so much more powerful.
Yeah, and then like that way, I guess like you are lowering your workload on one end, I guess, and on the other end, I guess like the people who you're inviting, like the champions, the leaders, they will bring their followers along with, right?
And as I mentioned, that's also a very kind of future focused perspective as well, because as I mentioned, with Gen Z, that generation creates and consumes more content than any other generation. So they want to create content, tapping it, and they're used to being raised with social media and that influencer approach. So whenever we're advising our clients, we're urging them to look for those trends. And I refer to it as trickle up effect. Like every major trend begins with the youngest generation and has since the beginning of time, and it trickles up and influences the masses, whether we're talking about rock and roll or Harley Davidson or Facebook. Facebook designed by college students for college students, and now there's grandmas and grandpas on Facebook. And looking at, okay, how has social media and the influencer movement, how is that going to change membership, right? It's looking at that. It's looking at other things that Gen Z is interested in, because it's being aware that that's going to trickle up and change your association. So if you can be thinking about that, preparing for it now, the better off your association is going to be. So, but all in all, just thinking about how do we leverage this community, and it's often an untapped opportunity in associations.
Now, you got me thinking. So, if we want to give our younger members more opportunities to create content for the association, because they are like content creators and like they consume content like very fast. So, I'm just wondering, like, how can you give a member more opportunities to create content for the association?
Yeah. So it's inviting people to, oh my gosh, so many things. Maybe it's inviting members to, and shifting it around. This member today or this week is running our social media, and then they post things of interest to them or about people, within their community. Maybe it's asking them to write newsletter articles and blogs, or posting to Instagram, or be our photojournalist for the week, or take pictures, have a contest. There's associations, the National Retail Federation a few years ago, and I often cite it as a best practice because it's just amazing. They had a video contest where they asked their members to do a video that did two things: explained about their company, a retail
Mm,
company, and how that retail company was making a difference in their community. And they had this contest and got hundreds of submissions, possibly thousands. It was many, many. They got media attention for it. And the winning video at that time got the member business, got $10,000 in a grant from the association. But the point being, now they had all this video content that they were able to multi-purpose to bring publicity to their member businesses, talk about how great the businesses were impacting their communities and the benefits of retail as an industry. And it was all tied to an association, the association piece and an association initiative. So win, 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 win.
mm.
Putting content in the power of the people, it's it's unbelievably influential. That association gleaned so many eyeballs, so much momentum on so many levels. So yeah, there's many ways. You're just prohibited by your creativity.
That's right. That's right. So we have a question here from the audience, which is, I think, like very important. So the question here is that like we talked about engaging them online in like social media or like somewhere else, right? Now, how do we get them to engage like on the actual online portal that the association actually has? So I guess like what you're saying is that like that content that you would create, you would post them on the online portal as well.
Yeah.
Is it?
Post really great content. Put it into the power of your members. Ask people to kind of seed that content through articles or invites or whatever the case may be. So you're using influencers, you're posting great stuff, things that kind of can't miss. Maybe it's a contest, maybe it's different things like that, where people all of a sudden kind of have a fear of missing out and they want to be there, and they're talking to their friends and you're building that community. But it's got to be great content that people want to see, and leveraging other people to be there as well.
Right, and I guess like along the lines of that question, I guess like we are seeing for a lot of associations is that like they would probably have like an online members area on their website, but then members will just like log in and renew their membership and maybe like watch a few like or maybe like get a few like, articles and that's about it. So the member portal is not an online community at all, you know, like so I think like that may be prohibiting a lot of people from kind of like creating an online community. So I think the whatever members area that you have right now as an association, I think it has to be more like a community type online portal and not a static. It has to be like social media.
I believe so. And if you just don't have those capabilities or you don't have that interest in building the community piece, then I go back to use it to leverage member value. So putting really valuable tools, resources, content there that your members need to succeed. It's like
Mm.
must have awesome stuff. And so that's adding to your value proposition, driving traffic there. And it's really, truly exclusive to members only. So yeah.
Right. And I guess like if you have the means then like for sure like create an online community. But like if you do not have it, then I guess like a fallback could be just create a Facebook group, as simple as that. Experiment there until you grow and you have the means to kind of like do more. In terms of like promoting the value of the association in general, right? So in the past, like emails were it, right? And in-person meetings, events were it, and you would like promote everything there. Maybe ads, TV ads, right? Like who does TV ads anymore? But like how is that changing for younger members?
Mm. Oh my goodness. Well, younger people obviously are tuning into TikTok. TikTok,
Hmm.
TikTok, TikTok, TikTok,
Okay.
TikTok, 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 24/7. TikTok is the platform of preference for this generation, and it's rapidly becoming the platform of preference for other generations as well. So, is your association on TikTok? Um, and again, remember that Gen Z likes to create content. So you can always invite some young people in your community to get it going. But but yeah, that is kind of the go-to. I would say secondarily would be things like Instagram, YouTube.
Hmm.
You know, if you're thinking, as I mentioned previously, it's about visuals. It's about visual learning. It's video, it's photos, it's things that are just high impact, right? And so finding really creative ways to do that. I was just talking to an organization this week that did some research, and rather than just present the research in kind of the boring traditional way, they hired an animation company to make it into like a cartoon,
Hmm.
and they're presenting key findings at the conference in like a 2-minute cartoon video, and then posting it to social channels. So so yeah, I mean, I think associations in some aspects, and not to freak anyone out, but I do think the future of associations is going to kind of be rooted in broadcasting, becoming the news source for your industry,
Hmm.
and utilizing video and creative ways to get your messages across, and entertaining your audience.
You know what? That's actually very powerful because you like what you said right now is just an example of a long form content like the research or a survey, and then we are sharing the promoting that, like marketing that, like through a short form content like a cartoon, like a tiny cartoon, right? And if so I guess like what we're saying is like yes, you will still have long form content and like high value content for sure, which is more engaging, but then like you keep that like maybe like behind the paywall on the website, but promote that with a tiny clip or something on TikTok or whatever channel your members are like more connected with.
Yeah. Yeah. The more you can create that fear of missing out, that FOMO,
Hmm.
and that member value, the better.
Got
Definitely.
it. Got it. So, what about like emails, SMS, push notifications, or
Mm.
similar things?
Yeah. Again, I think you got to ask your audience. I'm hesitant to answer that question one way or
Yeah.
another, because we actually find within our own client base that the answers really vary. It's so by industry, by association, by geography. So again, I think you gotta ask your membership? How do you want to be communicated with? And be prepared for different generations to have different answers. We do find, I'll just add, the answers vary, but something also kind of interesting. So I've just talked about all the technology and all that, and you do need to do that. That's absolutely important. But we also have seen with Gen Z, especially, that they're starting to say we're also experiencing some tech fatigue. So we do still like the face-to-face stuff, right? We still want when we want to have, these events and creative conferences and things like that. They still find value in that. So it's offering options to engage in various ways and learn in various ways and communicate in various ways. But so key to ask your members what they want too.
That's right. And I guess like if you do look at your data, so if you send email campaigns, if you send some SMS, like if you see that some of the channels are working better than others, that's
Yeah,
also a good indication like what we should be doing more.
exactly. Yeah,
Right. Okay. Good. Good.
exactly.
Ready. So Sarah, we got some great questions from the audience. So I'll start not taking the audience questions, but like part of my questions which I took from the audience. So we had like a lot of people asking about how to inspire younger members to take on volunteer roles.
Mm. Well, they got to be short. There's,
Okay.
again, as I was mentioning, how engagement has changed and how we've kind of transitioned out of this industrial era mindset, which was all about, longevity and quantity, and measurables are very different from today. Today, it's all about high impact, shorter quality, not quantity. And so, if you want to see someone's eyes glaze over, just tell them, okay, we want you to be on this committee for the next 3 years. Young people are going to be like, what? I don't even know what I'm going to be doing or where I'm going to be in 3 years. That's just a fact, because they've been raised during an era that is just so much has happened in the past few years, um, and has constantly happened throughout their youth. And so, again, that's part of that changing brain development, social development. We can't expect young people to sit on a board for 3 to 5 years, which sounds like a life sentence or longer. That longevity and long arch thinking is not prevalent. That's number one. Number two, it's looking at things in terms of a job description. It's being very, very clear about this is the role, this is what will be expected, this is the approximate number of hours. And if you, by the way, look at the description and it's a whole heck of a lot of hours, no, that's not going to work for young people, because again, young people aren't getting support from their employers to do these things, not like previous generations. So they got to get in and be able to feel like they're making an impact within a fairly short period of time. But they need to know what's expected, and they want to know what's in it for them. Because, like it or not, that's how young people think today. They're thinking, and that goes back to all kinds of things, from shifts in parenting and education. We've become a more child-centric society. We've raised children since the 1990s very differently. Some people call it the trophy kid mentality, but essentially it's this idea that people want to feel a sense of accomplishment. They want to feel a sense of pride, happiness, connectivity. So it's being very transparent about, okay, this is what we want from you. We really need your help. This is a call to action. Here's a great opportunity. You're going to learn these skills, or you're going to have this great return. And here's also how this opportunity will benefit you. It's thinking about it like a job description, but it's also thinking about it in shorter impact scenarios, not you got to spend 100 hours on this. That is not going to fly.
Right, right. And I guess like you mentioned that like the younger member has to know like what's in it for them, right? And I think like it's always possible to like find a win-win angle for everyone. So like, when you're organizing a big event like a conference or something, right? So there are many volunteer opportunities there. If you can define the role really well, then there will be members in the audience who probably like wanted to take on a like role like that, but they don't actually have the opportunity at their job to do that, because at their job that's just not there. So then they can volunteer here and then write that on their resume.
Right. Yes. When young people, especially, can prove to their boss that they're doing something worthwhile, they can prove
Yeah.
to themselves that they're somehow personally or professionally developing. And yes, absolutely. When they can use this as their advantage down the road, either to meet valuable contacts for their career or gain valuable skills, that's how you're going to get them to want to volunteer more readily.
All right. So we got this question from the audience as well. Actually, many people ask this question. How do we get better networking between younger and older members?
Yeah, I love this. I love this question. Yes, please. This is called cognitive diversity. So it is being super intentional about mixing up your decision-making circles. So I'll give you an example. A few years ago, the American Osteopathic Association was like, gosh, our association's getting older, but our workforce is trending younger. We can't get the young people what's going on. And also our association is just kind of aging out. We don't feel like we're on the right path, on and on and on. And the CEO at that time came up with a great idea to enforce cognitive diversity. So she got the board to agree to rewrite the bylaws. Yes, it's possible. Rewrite the bylaws to say any decision-making entity, whether it is a committee, a task force, or the board of directors, any decision-making entity has to have at least 30% of the people within their first 5 years of practice. For them, being an osteopathic association, that's what made the most sense for them. But essentially saying you have to have at least 30% under the age of 35. And by doing this and literally enforcing it, a whole heck of a lot of great momentum happened. Because now all of a sudden you're bringing in young professionals to be in community with experienced professionals, which creates greater sense of empathy, which creates greater sense of trust, creates greater belonging. All of a sudden people are learning and teaching from one another, and they're co-creating and having that sense of value and participation and empowerment in the organization. And what was interesting is they were curious to see, would this grow membership among young professionals? It not only grew membership among young professionals, they actually saw membership growth overall for all age groups. So it was kind of the equivalent of, electricity, right? It's just like all of a sudden, whew, it's yay. People were very excited about the momentum that was happening, and believed that the organization would be able to take them into the future. So being mindful of who is in decision-making roles is absolutely critical. That's the first step, because everything needs to start at the top with leadership. And so that's my advice for that.
That is bold. So we are forcing the communities, forcing the
Yeah.
communities of practices to include the younger members. Be deliberate
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. Hey, if we're a community of belonging, right, and we're representing people of all ages, all backgrounds, all skill sets, all races, all genders, all everything, then gosh dang it, our leadership needs to reflect that. Because this isn't a corporation. This is a membership association. It should be built by and representative of the members, all the members.
Wow. Wow. That is powerful. That is powerful. Yes. Yes, for sure. Alrighty. I guess like as technology changes, as we have like more like Gen Zers in the community, I guess like change will be a constant, right? And then like needs will keep evolving. How do we keep up?
Well, it's being in constant dialogue with young people. It's practicing that cognitive diversity, having young people in leadership roles. It's carving out time to talk to really young people. And I'm saying
Mm,
actually associations, spending time going, having high school town halls, going to college campuses, creating think tanks, because that's when you're literally, because as I mentioned, trickle up effect. So that's when you're really hearing from the youngest voices and you're able to anticipate change, prepare for change, make sure that you're creating an association that's going to be relevant and sustain trickle up effect. And it is carving out time also to identify trends. So, yes, obviously talking with younger people, but just asking yourself, is there any new technology that could threaten or change our industry? What new developments are on the horizon? What new influencers are emerging and why? And what's the hot topic? What are people challenged with right now? Or not only right now, but let's project out 5 years from now. What's likely to be the challenge then? If we do nothing now, what's the future likely to bring? How's it going to be different? It's taking time to intentionally ask those questions. And I think that's a big difference between associations of yesteryear, kind of in that industrial era mindset. It's always kind of talking about the good old days.
mm.
And very future focused talent economy organizations are the opposite. They are very intentional about setting aside time to be in communication with future generations and talking about future trends. That's where they fixate and focus their energies.
All right, so with that, I'm going to switch to audience questions completely now. So, first question from Haley, and Haley is asking, we think that our association has a lot of opportunities for like mentorship between younger and like or like older members, but efforts to do that hasn't been successful. What can we do?
I'm assuming this person is saying that the young people weren't showing up, they weren't engaging.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so ask them. This is one of those examples, right? Ask, how can we make this better? If you were creating this, what would you do differently? But I'm going to make a guess. I'm going to make a guess, but that doesn't mean take Sarah's word for it, right? You got to do the research yourself. I'm going to guess, because I've heard this a lot, that the mentoring programs are either not well managed, the mentors aren't very well vetted, it's a one-way street. I
Mm,
often hear that young people say, well, my mentor didn't really teach me a whole lot or spend a whole lot of time with me, or they were always inconvenienced by me. Or the other thing that may be the hurdle is that it's too long. So some mentoring programs you're supposed to meet with your mentor like 6 times or something, or over the course of a year. And a lot of times people, especially if it's not a good match, they will disengage or lose interest. So it might help to look at different formats. Um, Make sure it's really well managed. Someone's in there kind of coaching and helping teach mentees and mentors skills for mentoring and how to do it effectively. And but ask individuals, if you were doing this, what would you have done differently? How do we make it
yeah,
better?
yeah, I think you touched on something very important, right? So like as opposed to like it being like one way, so like top down, maybe if we can kind of like make it bottom up. So we know that the advanced, like the older member, they already have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge, they can bring to the table. But what need do the younger members have right now? So I guess like if we had the hypothetically, if we have that online community, and like if you encourage the younger members to like post questions, like what are some challenges like in your career, what questions do you have, what are your needs, if you like let them like post a question, and then after that like someone replies, like let them connect one on one in a mentorship arrangement, right? So
Mhm.
so be it like
Yep.
more meaning, make it more meaningful as opposed to random,
Yeah, like speed dating.
like
Um,
speed dating. Yeah.
But the other thing too is that every generation now has something to learn, something to teach. So it doesn't have to just be one way.
Yep.
Perhaps I'm an executive, I want to learn from someone young, or or prefacing that this is an opportunity to learn from one another. It doesn't have to just
Mm,
be one way. There are variations, but ask for feedback.
yeah, for sure. So I'm part of a group of like technology CEOs, right? And then like I'm actually very active in that community. And then like some like CEOs are like much more advanced than where I am at. Some CEOs are like like maybe at the like beginning level, right? But then like we kind of like drop our guard, and then like if I have a question, I just simply ask. I just ask, and I get wonderful answers from a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's another powerful thing, is kind of having that mastermind, which is so influential with it can be within membership groups, of bringing people, like what you're saying, roundtables or groups together to learn from one another in more intimate settings. That's very powerful.
Alrighty. So next question is from Mark Hein. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but that's
Mark.
fine. Mark Hein, I guess. Yeah.
Hi, Mark.
So Mark was asking, we tried a lot to engage with younger members, and then like but like as we survey our members more and more, we see that our like most members are between 38 and 45 years of age. Younger members who are kind of like more busy, like raising their kids or careers and then families, whatnot, like they're very busy. So is it a realistic expectation to kind of like get younger members engaged?
Oh my goodness, yes, it certainly is.
Okay.
But again, it's thinking about things very differently. Um, and it's asking them and empowering them to make some choices. You know, and you're absolutely right. Work and career is more demanding than, that work-life balance is
Oh
really
my God.
almost impossible. It's so that means membership has to change, because people don't have those like I said, rubber chicken dinners and 3 martini lunches, and it's overlapping, it's intermixed, it's chaotic, it's crazy. So, associations have found ways to around this by engaging their members and asking for feedback and guidance. And maybe it's bringing families to conferences, and there's separate tracks for families. National Speakers Association does a kids camp along speaking camp for kids and teenagers alongside the National Speaker Conference. So they're interweaving things. An optometric association was telling me a story about that they were just frustrated with, we can't get young people to show up or participate. And so they said, you know what, we're just going to ask a group of young people. They brought the influencers together, and they said, you lead this, you help, this is your thing. We will support you, but we want you to do it. And the first thing they said is, okay, we're going to have young professional events on Friday nights. And the
Mm.
association executive was like, Friday night, that is the worst idea. No to Friday night. And they were like, whoa, is this our choice or not? And so then the executive stepped off, said, you're right. I said I'd support you. And she's like, oh, dang it. They started having events on Friday nights, and we got tons of young people. So I think, again, it's asking, it's empowering, and it's being open to totally different ways of engaging people. But yeah, it's possible. We all want to belong. And I think when challenge is super high, as it is right now with work-life balance and careers and all of that for young people, the need to engage with other people is even greater. So have your association be that place.
Yeah, I think this is one area that we often overlook, that we often try to just like cater to the professional needs of the member. But what you just said is that like we're extending that beyond professional needs and like catering to their personal family needs as well, bringing families and kids together. I think this is very powerful.
Mm, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty. The next question is from Susan Alfano, and Susan was asking, how do we get organizations to allow their staff to participate more in association work?
That requires education, requires outreach. A very interesting thing, I'm going to totally potentially tick some people off, but I'm just going to say it. I've researched this quite a bit, and it's real interesting just to see kind of socially what happened in the aftermath of World War II, when baby boomers started coming of age and membership just through the roof skyrocketed. Well, if you look back at historical data, there was a huge outreach effort by the older generation to engage the young generation that was coming of age at that time. There were programs to get employers to send them to association events. There were programs to educate people about advocacy and civic involvement and running for office, and just lots and lots of programs that were going to reach out and engage young people. It was very intentional. And then that fizzled when Gen X came along. And we got to get back to that, but it requires education. It requires outreach. It requires explaining how membership makes a difference in someone's professional life. It may require some data. It may require some testimonials of those who do have young staff participating. It may require carving out space on Friday nights or whenever for young people so they can participate without their boss's permission, whatever the case may be. But you just got to find the workaround.
Funny you say that, because like we tried to hold team dinners on Friday evenings and people wouldn't show up. We moved it to Thursday, and lo and behold, people are showing up.
There you go. Yeah. It's not rocket
Right.
science. It's
It's
just
not rocket science.
asking
Yeah.
and
Asking.
trying different things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good, good. So next question is from Rina Hadziv. So Rina is asking, how do you suggest conveying the value of your association like to people who often feel that like everything should be free for them?
That's interesting. I don't know why they think it would be free, but that's a communication thing. So I think going back to the drawing board in that situation and saying, I actually would recommend kind of itemizing out and putting value on all the things, the products, the services, the programs, or even better, you can ask your members to do that. If you were paying for this separate of the association membership, what do you think the market value would be for this? Or what would you be willing to pay for this? And tally it up, create a little menu and say, this is what membership is worth. However, if you are looking at this list and the value isn't very high, that begs another question. And that may be why people are asking for it for free, because then that's telling you that it's not very valuable and you need to add value through member only, must have programming and services that people really want, really need to succeed, really value, and they have to go through your association to get it. I often tell associations that if value is a real problem, really step back and analyze what you're offering. If people are complaining a lot about cost and dues and things like that, that means there's not enough value. They're not either understanding the value or there is no value. And either way,
Yeah.
you got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, actually, that reminds me of like we have like a workshop, like a like part of our workshop where we help the association find their superpower, right? So what services that they can kind of like put out there that will actually be very popular for members, like the so in like as part of that, I guess like we do the exercise and like help them come up with the value, like what is valuable to them. I don't have time to like go to that right now. I think like we will be over our time if I did that, but like we will provide a link to that video from this video as well if anyone is looking to kind of like find more about this. All right. So, Sarah, you and I can do this all day, right? But we're running out of time at this point in time. Now, what would be your key takeaways for the audience today?
Ooh, so just like boil it all down into one key
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, okay. I'm going to borrow from someone else's
sure.
comment because I think it just captures everything, right? Steve Jobs, when he was alive, he would tell his team at Apple, his saying was, we need to ask if what we're doing is a generation ahead or a generation behind. And I just think that beautifully summarizes what we've talked about today, because that's where relevance is. That's being in touch with future trends and future generations. And it's really also pushing associations to question, are we really truly inclusive of everyone? Are we a community of belonging? Are we representative of our entire membership? Are we offering something of value and importance and relevance? Are we ahead? Are we ready for the future, or are we behind and we need to catch up? And so be asking yourselves, are we what we're doing right now, are we a generation ahead or a generation behind?
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. And I guess like when that happens, if you don't have enough resources to kind of like be a generation ahead, like any action you take, any micro actions, little actions will take you towards that direction.
Right. Exactly.
All
This
right.
was fun. Did I answer all the questions?
Yeah, a lot, and there were many other questions which we didn't even have like time to take, but that's fine. We tried to cover them during the episode itself. So, Sarah, how can people reach out to you if they have any more questions later?
Sure. You can send me an email at hello@sarahsladek.com. So hello at SARAHSLDEK.com. And I'd be happy to answer your questions there.
All right, Sarah, thank you so much for being with us today. Really appreciate it. It was fun.
I loved it. Yes. Let's do this again sometime.
Alrighty, sure, will do, will do. Alrighty, so that was the episode with Sarah. I'm sure you got a lot of like gold nuggets from there. I myself got a lot, and I think a lot of the things that I learned from the episode, we will bring it back into our product member launch for sure. And in general, I guess you got a lot today, and if you want to do all of this, nothing will happen. So like think of this episode as a buffet. You got many ideas, so many action items, so many little like tips and tricks. See what makes the most sense for you right now. What can you realistically do with your members, with your team right now, right? So we shouldn't be taking on like big projects that we cannot like deliver on. So like try to like start the journey some way. So one step and then the next step, and then over time you'll actually like be one generation ahead. So with that, we're going to wrap up for today. We hold a lot of online events. We have our webinar and our podcasts, and you can actually find our online events on our website at grype.ca/events too. So if you just if you didn't know where to find our events, just go to our website and then find the events. We will have like many wonderful guests like Sarah on our upcoming events. So with that, we're going to wrap up. Thank you so much for being with us today. And if you have any more questions, please reach out to Sarah or reach out to us. We wish you all the best with your membership journey. Bye for now.
Thank you.